knowing that your libido is a marker of your own health is so huge. How can we talk about the communication piece? What did that look like in you and your husband's relationship? How is it something that you continue to work on?
God, communication about it is so tough. And we are not a good example because we went to the brink of divorce with it. But now that we've learned that it's not a reflection of maybe like how I think he views me, appearance wise, sure, it's much easier to talk about and it's much easier to get on the same page. And, it's kind of silly because we still have some women that'll sign up their guys online on the guy's site, and then we'll call them to set up their appointment. And they'll be like, I didn't sign myself up.
Oh, this is
so there's some sneaky women out there. Okay. I know.
Let's link up with Krysta on the Fix. She's a wellness coach with a focus on mental well-being and physical strength.
What's going on, Fix listeners? Welcome back to our latest episode of the Fix podcast. I'm your host, Krysta Huber, and today I've had the pleasure of sitting down with another incredible female from a really cool company that is changing the women's wellness and telemedicine game, and that's Katy Whalen of Joi Wellness. Joi is a sister company of another really cool concept called Blokes, which if you guys are interested in checking out for any of my guys out there who listen to the Fix podcast, more on Blokes down in the show notes and everything that they offer. But this episode is definitely for the females. And I should even say, we talk a lot about male and female relationships throughout this conversation. So if I do have any guys out there that are listening, there's a lot of value in this for you too. But what I love so much about this conversation and something that Katy shares at the very end, and I couldn't agree more with, this is all about taking control of your own wellness journey, but learning how to listen to your body. Your body keeps the score. Your body knows when something isn't right. It's such an amazing, incredible, powerful system. And I think we're so quick to just assume, especially as women, that just because you've been experiencing something for a long time, it's considered quote unquote normal. And this is an episode that may push you to think twice about that exact thing. So dive into this. You'll hear us talk about in the very first few minutes of this chat, while you might hear the words hormone replacement therapy or peptides or some of the acronyms for that, like HRT, and immediately think about menopause and perimenopause. This is an episode for females of any age because you can take control of your health, you can take control of your wellness, and you can take control of your life when you're empowered with more information. So I was really grateful and honored to have this opportunity to talk to Katy, who opened up about her own journey, her own experience with infertility, her husband's experience with dealing with his own lacking testosterone levels and how that impacted their ability to start a family and frankly, their relationship. And we talked about weight loss. We talk about different peptides and how peptides, while they're not new, they're kind of having a moment and can really, she believes, may really become the next tool in our toolkit of so many resources we can use to optimize our health. So this is a conversation in health optimization. And rather than just feeling good, it's all about feeling great. So with that, let's open the episode and welcome Katy to the Fix podcast. Katy, welcome to the Fix podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. Really excited for this conversation. And as you know, as we chatted about pre-recording and getting prepped for this episode, like to kick off the show on a really fun note, talking all things coffee. So before the Fix listeners get to learn a little bit more about you, who you are, Joi, all the things, tell us what you're sipping on in the morning and to get you through the day.
This question kills me because I literally just gave up coffee.
Talk about that. Tell us. This is important. I get this a lot too. This is a good conversation. Let's roll with it.
I don't know why. I like to hurt myself. I used to be a grass-fed butter and collagen blended up in my coffee.
Okay.
So satisfying. But now, in my 40s, I'm reading all sorts of things like we don't detox caffeine as well as maybe we should. So now I'm sipping on some dandelion root and it's okay. It's grown on me.
Okay. How long has this journey been for you?
It's been a few weeks. There's only been a couple of headaches, but I'm getting through it.
All right. Did you get past that like 1 week hump of like you start to feel a little better, or where are we at with that?
It was a week for sure. And I was like, okay, maybe I'm not going to do this.
I've done it once before. It took me a week too. So that's why I kind of knew the marker.
Yeah, it's crazy. We have that every day. So many people rely on that. It's nuts.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I always bring this up whenever I have a guest who has that experience, and I commend you for just let's make this all about listening to your body, right? Because I actually think that'll be the theme of the conversation anyways. So it's kind of perfect. But coffee is a fun one because it's I got this from my own nutrition coach. I never knew this until she was on my podcast. One of the most well-researched, I don't want to call it a food, but like one of the most well-researched items that we consume. And butter is one of the second. And butter and coffee are also the most contaminated items that we consume in like the world. So it's really interesting that coffee is in fact so well researched. It's a great thing because now we have all this information available to us to be able to make educated decisions. As you and I both know, especially as women, there's so much research out there, especially in the field of women's wellness, that is not researched using females, which is just mind blowing. And we could talk about that. But I think it's great that you can take the information you have available to you, compare that with how you actually feel on a day-to-day basis, and then make a really informed decision and be willing to experiment and try different things. And, I think the biggest thing is, like you said, so many people rely on coffee and it's such a norm to them that they don't know any other way. So you have nothing to compare it to. I talk to my clients who are dealing with gut health issues with that all the time. It's like they don't know that their behavior in the bathroom isn't normal because it's their normal, right? And that's all you have to go off of and all you have to experience. So at the end of all this, a lot of what we're doing is really just like one giant science experiment if you really think about it that way. So that's my hot take.
Totally. Yeah. I'm all about experimenting. Like you got to keep changing it up and you got to see what's right for you. And if coffee's right for you, have at it. But if you never take it away, you're never going to really know how you feel off it. Right.
Totally. And that's why I did it. I was at a point where I was drinking being in the fitness industry, you got a lot of early wake ups and very, very early alarms. And at one point, like when I was really in the thick of pre-COVID, I have to caveat that with, because I don't think people work out at 5 a.m. to the extent that they used to anymore. So at the time I was teaching a lot of 5 a.m. classes, like multiple days a week, waking up at 3:34. And coffee would obviously be the first thing I would reach for. But it got to a point where, because I was working the hours I was having coffee at 6 a.m. and then I was ready for my next cup by 8. And it's like before 12 o'clock, I've already had like 3 shots of espresso plus a second cup of coffee. Like what the hell was I doing to my body? I know better now. And my coffee consumption doesn't look anything like that. But I too, like yourself, went through a little bit of a detox to try to figure out like, what is this actually really doing to me? Another little tip, if you are interested in reintroducing your coffee, but protecting your hormones, one of the coolest things that you can do with coffee is when we wake up in the morning, most of us tend to reach for coffee right away, right? Like chances are you may not even have the crust out of your eyes yet. You're running downstairs or walking across your apartment and you're already turning on your coffee maker or you're pouring your iced coffee. I'm an iced coffee girl. The biggest issue with that is if you think about your cortisol awakening response, you basically just don't give your cortisol any time to actually do its thing to get you up and out of bed. If you can time your coffee and extend it by about 90 minutes, it can be huge in terms of allowing your cortisol awakening response to do its job and like get you awake, get you alert, let it do its thing. And then if you think about it that way, it's almost like, okay, if it reaches its peak, and ideally I should, asterisk all this and say, this is for a healthy person who has proper cortisol patterns, which at some point in my life I have not. And that's why I went down this road with coffee myself. You can kind of like ride out that wave, if that makes sense. So you start to consume the coffee when your cortisol is kind of at the peak right before it drops. In a way, it's manipulating that process a little bit for you. So let's say you wake up at 7 a.m., you push your coffee back to 8:39, you can really kind of hit a sweet spot that could hopefully, as long as everything else is operating accordingly, help you avoid that like 2 p.m. kind of slump. So
Very interesting.
Something
like
to keep in mind if you decide to reintroduce it. Not that I'm trying to convince you, but
we'll see.
Yeah. Well, good for you. Well, awesome. So let's get into exactly why we're here. I want to talk about Joi, but more importantly, I want to talk about you because that's such a integral part of this entire journey. Your whole family, talk about your husband, Blokes, your kids, everything. So tell us specifically, we can get into what Joi is and all of that, and we'll save that for as we walk through this conversation. But I want to know who Katy is as a person, and more specifically, why should the FYX listeners care about what you have to say and what you're bringing to the table today?
Well, if you are a woman and you're lucky enough to live to old age, then you will most certainly go through perimenopause and menopause. Now, 80% of us will experience irritating symptoms that last on average about 7 years. But way more important than just symptoms is you should know what's happening during those life stages, and you should really know what your treatment options are, because it's a crucial time of your life that can lead to reduction in heart disease by 30 to 50%. And that's the number one cause of death for women.
Wow.
It can cut your risk of osteoporosis and hip fracture by 50%. It can make you 73% less likely to get dementia and Alzheimer's, and it can add 3 to 4 years to your life.
I mean, the last two, they're all important, but the last two, reducing potential for dementia and Alzheimer's by 73%. We got to dive into that statistic a little more because that's just mind blowing.
It is literally. Yeah.
Huge. Wow. So knowing all of these things, and let's pair that with the very first comment you made. Why, and this is a big question, why do you think so many women don't really understand what's actually happening to their bodies? And I'm going to come at this and say that I'm like, obviously, being as young as I am, I don't have all the answers because I haven't experienced this myself yet, but I know I will. And I know it's something that's coming. I know it's something that there's other women in my life who have experienced it, are approaching it. My clients are experiencing it. And I'm really here because I want to educate and empower myself now so that once I do reach this age, I'm aware of what's happening, not just from like a symptom standpoint, like you're saying, but like, what is the mechanism? Like, what is fundamentally going on inside of our bodies? Because I will say, I have 2 clients right now who are experiencing perimenopause, and I will tell you that that's their number one complaint. Like they have these symptoms, they feel uncomfortable, but when they go into the doctor's office, they just don't feel like they're getting that education to know what is happening inside of their body. So what do? They Google, they scare themselves a little bit. Like, I mean, it's 2023 almost. We have this technology at our fingertips, amazing, but where do we start? Like how do we break this all down?
Well, first of all, I will say I don't think it's well known. It's crazy, but I don't think it's well known for a lot of reasons. And one of them may be because research traditionally hasn't been done on women, like you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Another could be traditionally it was all men picking what to research. Sure. And if you list any kind of symptom of perimenopause or menopause to men, they'll probably just like, eke back and say like, too much. I don't want to talk about that. Too much information. Hormones scare me. Menopause scares me. And then other than that, there was a huge study that came out in 2002 all about scaring people to death, that saying that breast cancer or that hormone therapy causes breast cancer, which turned out to be debunked. But it was a huge media blitz. And it even then, after it was debunked, it never got the attention it deserved to talk about how all those things were false in the study and what hormone therapy can do to you. So it stopped a huge generation of women from taking HRT. All the doctors got scared. And, if you're a doctor, you have a lot of liability. So, of course, you're even getting people to get back into it and to keep up with the research is not easy. General doctors just don't study, hormones, menopause in school, so we're going to people that have studied and specialized other things, but not this. You really have to keep up with research. You really have to specialize in this, treat patients day in and day out to know what's going on and to know the benefits of it and what the risks are.
That makes a lot of sense. I didn't know about that study in particular. I just, and obviously this is my lens and my bias showing, right? Because of what I choose to read, who I follow on social media. I just get this sense that there's all of a sudden a new wave in HRT clinics and resources and what have you starting to pop up. So if you'd like to tie Joi and Blokes into this, I'd love to get an understanding around like, what is it about now today, moving us to 20 years later, that has started to change the conversation and make this a positive?
Well, I think it's the continuation of the women's movement. And I think it's women demanding that we are in research studies and that you do, specifically look at issues that are important to us. We're also living longer, and women are also having babies longer. So, you look at what that does to your body in that process. And then after that, you go right into these life stages.
Sure.
So it's a tough transition. It's a tough point. And so I think that the other thing is that I think most women think you get better and better with age in terms of, how you feel about yourself and your mind and what you can do in your career. Like really, life does not end at 40 or 50.
Hell no.
Look at frickin' J-Lo now. I mean,
right.
The age is different now. Like we're living more vitality, living longer. And so it is really important to keep up with the times and to address what all women go through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I that's a huge point. The second point you just said and giving J-Lo as the example, so true. I think that I feel like a lot of people talk about this more now in the context of relationship. At least I feel like I hear this often, and in listening to relationship podcasts or what I consume online, people will talk about the fact that because people are living longer, there's a lot of questions around relationships, romantic ones in particular, in wondering are we meant to be with just one person? And how much of that question is influenced by the fact that people are living so much longer, right? Because if you think about it, I think about my own grandparents and they listen to this podcast. So hopefully they listen to this one. They met when they were 15 and they've been married for over 50 years, but they're still really young. The fact that they've been married for that long, and I still consider them very, they have a lot of vitality. My grandpa still works out. I had to yell at him last week because he still works out like he's 30 and he's not, but
good for him.
Yeah. I got good genes, that's for sure. And, it's interesting to then think about it in the context of women's wellness, and to go back to one of your very first statistics that you shared, look at the fact that women are living longer. 3 to 4 years is a considerable amount of time, especially when you think about it being on the end of your life, right? Because I want to live an extra 3 to 4 years that are quality. I don't want to live an extra 3 to 4 years where I don't have my wits about me, that I don't have my cognitive function. That's no way to live.
Right. Exactly. I feel you on that. I mean, I think that's the goal for everyone, and that's the goal for us. Hormone therapy is a choice, but when you really break it down and look at what each hormone does for us, they're all important. And the fact that you go, okay, at 50, I'm just going to lose all of my hormones, my three main, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, and then expect to live another 40 years without them is pretty insane.
Yeah, it's totally insane. And I want to keep going on that point. But before we do, I also want to add, just in anybody listening to this and just knowing the audience and the ages of the women who listen to this show, this is a really important conversation, not just for the fact of arming yourself with the information so that 10 years from now you are prepared for these lifestyle changes and these phases of your life that are going to come regardless, but also too, in describing the fact that your hormones change and you could lose your production of your estrogen, your progesterone, your testosterone. That can also happen at any age due to how you choose to live your life. And I will be the first to raise my hand and say, as much as I was half joking around about my coffee consumption, that led me to a lifestyle that caused a lot of severe burnout. And I've done my own research and I've really poured myself into this as a case study. And I've done the test where I've seen my testosterone so low that it explained why I had mental health challenges, that it explained why I felt like I couldn't put on muscle, that explained why I had all of a sudden put on a considerable amount of body fat when I always looked at myself as this really fit person. It was like, well, where did this all come from? When you dive a little deeper and you start to ask those questions, forget how old you are. It's really, really important that you understand how all of these hormones function in your body on a day-to-day basis, whether you're 20, 25, 40, or 60. I think that's something that for me and my own personal experience, and I'd love for you to share a little bit more about yours, because I know that's a huge part of how Joi and Blokes came to be. But I personally got really passionate about understanding hormones, about understanding birth control. We could have a whole conversation around that because I went through like the depths of really, really horrible feelings. And I will be the first to also say, I hate that. Like, I hate that that's what I had to go through in order to even get exposed to this information. I'm appreciative of it. And I hope that now, as I sit here and we have this conversation and we publish this podcast, it's like, great. Hopefully there's a woman listening who starts to question, oh, I feel like this, I've had this symptom, I've had that, like maybe I need to dive a little bit deeper. But it's also scary in that it took that extreme for me to like really uncover what was actually going on. And I'm very hopeful that that's a changing conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you know what you feel like, right?
Totally.
And so that's, you pay attention to it, maybe more than the average person.
Yeah.
But that's really the goal, is like, if something is off and you should know what that is, that's when you kind of ask questions and dig around. But, and this is not just a, get on HRT, talk when you're in your 40s and 50s. Like there are a lot of young women who have like gut health issues and who have, IBS, PCOS, endometriosis. There's a lot of women suffering with, just all the things that we go through and all the environmental factors that are out there that we're all dealing with.
Right. I think we could get into endocrine disruptors. We could talk about everything from our skincare to our shampoo to our technology. There's so many things, and that can be very overwhelming. But I think what a lot of it just boils down to, I like to kind of wrap it all up in talking about lifestyle. Because as I said, and sharing just a little bit about my own journey, I also take full responsibility for it. Because at the time, like, and I still have to check myself on this often, my mom is always up, like, on top of me about this, like getting sleep, right? And it's those fundamental things. Like, granted, they're not like the cure all, but they are so, so, so paramount to your health that we can't just sit here and think that we can throw Band-Aids on problems if we're not looking at some of those basics. And I think that's kind of where, like, from my impression, a lot of the work that you're doing can bring it all together, right? And we take other companies out there that are taking these holistic wellness approaches, even the way that I do nutrition with my clients. Like, that's really what it all boils down to, is we can't look at any of this in a vacuum, because life just doesn't really work that way either. Right.
No, you're exactly right. And, you really want to, like you said, heal from the inside, heal the root cause. One thing that I'm just obsessed with now that I didn't know a year ago is peptide therapy. And I really think that, the more research I do and the more things I try, I think it's going to be pretty popular in the future. I think you'll hear a lot more about it. I think people will start to see what it is and understand what it is, and hopefully use it a lot more, instead of just taking, traditional medicine to cover up symptoms. Really something, that works with your body, that you have in your body. And I'm pretty excited about that for the future.
So let's talk more about peptides. Let's use that as the jumping off point. We talked about it a little bit when we did our pre-call, and I didn't know too much about it myself. And I think that most people hear the word. And to me, if I had to poll like half of my clients, if they hear the word peptide, the first thing they're going to think of is like collagen peptides. So let's get into it. Tell me all about it. Tell me about some of the benefits. Like, you start wherever you would like, because I think, again, whole point of being here is to educate, and tell me why this is this new cutting edge approach that can be a really useful tool for people long term.
They're not necessarily new. The first peptide was insulin, so that's been around for quite some time. But what they are, basically, they're naturally occurring. We've got thousands of them in our bodies, and levels decline as you age, of course, with everything. Everything declines as we age. So what we do is, make synthetic versions of the peptides that you have in your body. For instance, if you look at, let's talk about gut health, BPC 157.
Yep.
That stands for body protective compound. It's in your gastric juices, and it is super healing. It helps with gut health. It helps with inflammation. If you have a wound or like you're covering from surgery, you can shoot it right into that wound, or a soft tissue tear.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So it's like super healing and great for your gut health. We see a lot of great results with people that have autoimmune issues. And so, that is like one tool that you can use to help actually heal. So that's what a great example of what a peptide is. Another one that I really love, we have growth hormone releasing peptides. So your growth hormone is at your highest when you're about middle school age, and then it declines. And if you think of everything around that time, you have energy, you're sleeping really deep, your skin looks great, you can build muscle, and you don't have issues with retaining fat. So we have a peptide that actually tells your cells to release more of its own growth hormone. So it's just kind of like a key to turn on a function in your body. So all kinds of different peptides to do those kind of things. Yeah. So it just kind of helps you, with all the things, feeling a little bit more alive every day.
And I love what you said about the fact that it's a tool, because again, to my point about like my little speech on sleep, that's what all this is. And that's why the holistic approach is so important, because we want to have as many tools at our disposal as possible, but respecting that they need to work together too. And they can't just be like, let's try this, let's try that. Well, how does this influence this? How does this influence that? So, I think as a way to kind of explain Joi and Blokes and what Joi does and the role that the company can play in women's lives, why don't you tell me a little bit more about the company overall and the types of services that you're providing? And then I think we can use that as a way to get into understanding that there are benefits far beyond looking at somebody with perimenopause, menopause. We can talk about weight loss. We can talk about just feeling good, like you said. So however you kind of want to give us the rundown of what Joi provides for women.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we're online telemedicine. So we're virtual to all 50 states. So what we try to do is be your partner on your health journey. We try to encourage you and be by your side while we're figuring it out together. So what we do is really try to optimize you. We have, different sets of labs if you want to go deep and look at whatever's going on with your gut health or with your thyroid or obviously with your hormones. And then we will obviously use hormone optimizing therapies and then peptide therapies, which span the gamut in terms of like whatever you need, whether it is weight loss or gut health or just more energy or better sleep. I always like to say there's a peptide for that. But yeah, we just want you to feel good, and we want to help you. We obviously think the lifestyle choices are so huge. So we're always giving tips to do all those type of things too. Cause you can't, like you said, you can't just have one without the other. You got to all work together. And, anyone that comes to us with an issue or who wants to feel good, I feel like they're really incorporating everything in trying to make positive change.
And I mean, to that end, I'd love to know, just in looking at your patients and the women that you work with, do you find that a lot of them have gotten to a point where they have tried so many things and they're just at this place of maybe a little bit of desperation because they feel like I've tried this, I've done that. And then they play a little bit of a comparison game because they see a sister, friend, cousin, coworker, whoever, and they're like, well, what the hell? Like, this person tried this thing. I tried this thing. I was super committed to it and I didn't see the same results. Like, am I broken? Is there something wrong with me? Because I think that's the story I get a lot with most of my clientele when it comes to nutrition, and they go hand in hand.
Yeah. I mean, if there's something super out of whack, if your gut health is leaky, then like it's going to be hard to get all the results and feel how you want. Right. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely see that. I see a lot of women coming to us and saying, like, I have not changed anything, but all of a sudden I've gained weight around my abdomen, like what's going on? Like, I am desperate to lose that,
Yeah. And tell me a little bit more about your own experience in this side of things, because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression that I got from when we talked about this is, one, your husband was really kind of the catalyst in exploring his own health. But then two, your experience as a new mom at the time made you realize, like, wait a second, like, I don't have to feel a certain way just because I went through this like major life change, this major change to my body, and now have a completely different lifestyle with caring for another being.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it did start with my husband. I basically threatened to divorce him not too long after we were married because, we were going through a super stressful time. We wanted to start a family right away, and we had a lot of trouble with that, and it broke our hearts.
Yeah.
And it led to some like communication issues because I was like warrior woman on a mission, and he was like, my heart's broken. Like, I need time, but he was like afraid to
tell you that.
Of course, tell me that. So we were off in our own little corners, dealing with, life's struggles differently. So during that time, his testosterone tanked. And he was not interested in sex at all. And I was, at that time focused on starting a family.
Of course.
I had gained some weight. So I was like, oh, you just don't like me anymore. Like, I was feelings of anger and sadness and resentment. So it took us a long time to figure out that his lack of interest, lack of libido, was because his testosterone went so low. It was like a year and a half before he found someone to really help him and go, okay, yeah, you need help, and this is how you do it, So that's when he got the idea.
Sorry to cut you off, but I want you to keep going with what you just said about his story. I'm very curious, knowing that you were having trouble with getting pregnant. Why did it take that long for someone to potentially look at his situation? Like, tell me, if you don't mind, like kind of diving a little deeper into your own experience, because I think there's a lot of people who can relate to what you're about to say.
I mean, it was just me pushing and trying all the things. Like,
of course.
I tried, just being sweet to him. I tried being mean to him. I tried writing a list for him. Men just don't take, in my experience, men just in general, like, don't take as good of care about themselves, or if there's an issue, they let it go. I mean,
I think there's statistics around that actually with like men and doctors visits. I'm not going to quote anything because I don't know for a fact, but like I have definitely heard this before, and I feel like I could think about my siblings, my dad, like for sure. So I definitely agree with you.
It's one of the reasons they need us in their lives, right?
Amen. 100%. We're so essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So continue on like your guys' journey in starting a family. So this happens to him. You finally figure out that this is not just like one person in this scenario. Obviously, there's a second component to this. So where did you go from here in then beginning with starting Blokes? And I should add, I'm assuming, making a huge assumption to the listener here, so I need to caveat this and say Blokes is basically like your brother company, right? Like, is that the best way for me to describe it? And you're the sister company. So if we think about what Blokes provides, it's similar concept, but targeted towards males.
Right. Yeah. Helping the guys feel good and look good. Yeah.
So tell me, let's talk about the infancy and of that company and how that then rolled into Joi. So, your husband figures out that there's something wrong with his testosterone. Where does he go from there? Does he have a hard time figuring out like what HRT is right for him? Like, what was that experience like for him?
Yeah. I mean, he went to a doctor, classic story, and they said, you're fine. You're in the low end of the normal range, and, obviously we know those ranges at the labs are
too big.
Not
I'll put it that way.
And you don't want to be normal in those.
That's for everything. Like I talk to clients about this a lot because I'll ask them for their lab work and I'll say to them, they're like, well, my doctor said everything came back as like within range. And I'm like, give me the labs because I want to look at them and I compare them to a much tighter reference point. And all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, there's a little bit of a different picture here. And they're like, how did you figure that out? I was like, I'm going off of a standard that's a lot stricter because I'm trying to be more specific. Like even just in the fact that when you get lab work back and you don't see like, oh, males are in this category, females are in this category. Like that's a huge difference that in and of itself. And it's like, oh, like the standard population range is here, here, and here. And we could go down such a rabbit hole with this, but I want you to keep going and just, your husband was in the doctor's office. They kept telling him he was fine. What at that point was the conversation between the two of you to be like, this is not acceptable, and like, we're going to keep pushing? Because it sounds like you were willing to be like, I'm going to not, not leaving any questions out there. Like, you're going to explore every possible scenario.
Yeah, I needed that fixed. I knew that. Our marriage was not going to last on no sex. It's very important.
Very important.
Yeah. I mean, my husband is super entrepreneurial. So he like probably has about 10 new business ideas every week. So, just, he'd always been in healthcare, and we actually had clinics. We had 4 brick and mortar clinics that got shut down during COVID. Mm-hmm. So this was like a natural, like one that seemed to fit, like, this is an issue. It worked for me, and let's go online, be COVID proof. So that's kind of how it started. And I was letting him do his thing. I was like, you go do your thing. I'm good. I'm actually, it took me 5 years, but I did have a couple of babies, and I was pretty excited after a long, hard journey, to do that. And this was in my like mama la la land. And then I saw him slowly, not really even slowly, I saw the effects of, him getting on first testosterone. And then after that, he started getting into peptides. Okay. And I started him I saw him like being really excited to work out and seeing results, and his mood was elevated. He was sleeping better, all the things. So, after my second baby, I was like, okay, now I'm in my 40s. I'm not anywhere who I used to be. I don't know who I am. Like, looking in the mirror was just like, who is this lady, this old lady looking back at me? So that's when I was like, I need these therapies. And I was lucky that my husband went through it first. Sure. So I could jump right on as soon as I was done breastfeeding. And then I was just honestly, genuinely super thrilled with results, and super thrilled to have something help me. Like, I'm a hard worker. I'm going to do the work, but it was just, I just felt like that extra like friend, like nudging you along. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, we knew women needed it too. So that's why we started Joi after the men's side.
And I think you could relate to this, and you kind of touched on it, but I want to push you to go a little deeper with you describing looking at yourself in the mirror and not recognizing the woman that you saw back at you, the mom, the wife, all the different roles you could play in your life. Tie that to what you just said about help and being hardworking and maybe not always being the first person to raise your hand to ask for help. How much do you think that side of you, pretend for a second like your husband hadn't had the experience that he did, right? Like, let's say Josh never had, let's say he didn't figure out what was up, and he decided that you guys were just going to push through and everything worked out as it did. Do you think that it would have been that much harder for you to understand and even come to know that there was help out there for you and there were other options available?
100%. I know I wouldn't be anywhere near I am. And what floors me is I feel like there's a lot of like talk and help around, women that are trying to have babies, which is fantastic. And there needs to be more. Mm-hmm. But like, I feel like when you're done, women are oftentimes just kind of out there left with like, okay, 100%. Now what?
Yeah. Like, I see this a lot right now because I'm at the age where I go through my Instagram and there's 3 things going on. Someone got engaged, someone got married, someone has a baby announcement, and the baby announcement ladies are documenting their experience. And I'll have an episode that comes out before this one. And so it's kind of great timing to have the 2 back to back. I have a friend who is newly pregnant. So we did a whole pregnancy episode, and then we'll have yours come out right after. So we can cover both ends of the spectrum, which is really cool. But I just saw a post the other day that was this really eye-opening graphic. And it said, like, it showed all the stages of pregnancy and how, as you continue through the last trimester, how frequent your doctor's visits become on the left-hand side. Right-hand side was the one visit you have postpartum. Good luck. See you later. And I brought it up to a friend who has had children. I can't remember who I had this conversation with. Brought it up to somebody, and she said to me, she was like, yes, that's so true. And on top of that, she was like, the thing is that's so wild about this when it comes to postpartum depression and other challenges that women are facing, a lot of times it's a really, really astute pediatrician that is the one that catches it. It's not an OB, because the pediatrician is obviously, there's all these visits for baby, post baby, and the pediatrician will turn around and look at mom and be like, how are you doing? Are you okay? And amazing. I'm so glad those people are out there. Like, that's awesome. But yeah, I think like you make such a great point that it's just like, nobody's like 2 steps ahead to say to you like, hey, it's okay to ask for help. And I find one of the biggest themes that comes up for all of my clients when it comes to nutrition, half the reason they won't hire a nutrition coach is because of that. They're just afraid to raise their hand and ask for help. And I'll be the first one to call bullshit on that, because that's me too. Like, I hate to ask for help. And it's like, well, you're only going to get so far. And I'd love for you to keep going. And you shared this with me before we started recording. And I think it's a really important point to make. Like, I forget exactly how you said it, but you were like, I didn't know I could be this well. I think that's such a profound statement. And I want you to just kind of talk further to that statement.
Yeah. I mean, I think along with the whole, like the whole message of like, we're kind of just left off on our own after a certain age or a certain life stage. I think that we're also just kind of meant to, or appears that we're supposed to just kind of deal with things on our own and like grin and bear it and go, oh, well, I'm a mom now, so mom brain is normal. Like, I'm going to forget what I came into the room for, and that's okay. Or, well, I'm supposed to be tired all the time, right? I'm taking care of 2 little kids. And there's like an expectation that you're just supposed to like power through by yourself and accept all these kind of like horrible symptoms and horrible things that are happening to you. So yeah, like once I started seeing the change and going, holy shit, like I like this. Yeah. Like I literally I've always worked out. I've never really had any muscle tone, and I am no like Hulk right now, but like I can see some muscle tone, and that thrills me.
How does that make you feel?
I love it. It makes me just want to get stronger. It makes me want to lift more weights. And I know muscle is super important for aging and longevity, but like, it's kind of just fun since I've never really,
I love that. Like obviously as a fitness professional, that just lights me up. Like, I want all of my clients to feel like working out is fun. And look, I'm not trying to paint this with rose-colored glasses. Like, it's not fun all the time, every single day. And I know you can back me up with that. But if you like loathe the feeling of going to the gym, let's break this down and just admit that you're not going to get yourself there consistently. Like, I've been in that place, and there was nothing that anyone could say to me as someone who was equipped with all the knowledge to literally put her own workout together. You get yourself into enough of a poor headspace that you're just like, I hate this. There's nothing that's going to get you there until you like get out of your way. And it's like, I think a lot of people get to a point where they're like, I can't get out of my own way. I don't know how to get out of my own way. And then they don't know where to turn to.
That's so true. And honestly, like, it's just, once you can feel good results and see good results, I just think it's a snowball effect. Same with anything. If you feel like crap, you're going to sit on the couch and, and, you know, if you start feeling good and start noticing differences, that's when you'll start doing other things to help.
So you mentioned in your own journey, you know, benefits of fitness, feeling excited about being in the gym. It sounds like energy levels really improved. Tell me about some of the other benefits that you've seen in your own life. You talked a lot about your experience, you know, pre-babies and your husband's libido and sex drive, but like, we got to normalize this and talk about it for women too. So if you're willing, tell me about that.
Yeah. I mean, geez, it's so important. It was funny because I was harping on my husband because he didn't have sex drive for a while. And then he's, you know, slowly got his better, optimal. And then that's right when I had my second baby, which, your hormones go crazy after that. And I 100%. I had no libido after that, which is pretty normal. Not that you should stay in that place, but it is normal to have that huge drop. So it was funny because like, as he was good, I was like, I'm good. I don't need it. And then it gave me some empathy for him. I'm like, shit, like I was pretty hard on you, but now I understand that it's just like a physiological thing that it was, you know, that you were going through. So I got on my testosterone, and also progesterone helps balance me out too there. Okay. But yeah, I mean, it's an important part of life. And I think it's so important for your partners to be like together on that. Yes. If you're missing the mark, then it creates a lot of issues. I mean, they say sex and money and kids, that's what people fight about and break up about. So
yeah. Totally. And the other thing too, that in what you just said about you and your partner being on the same page, and you alluded to this earlier, and I'd be totally remiss not to ask you to talk about it more because I can tell it's important to you and it should be, is the communication piece of all of this. So if somebody's listening out there and they don't know how to have this conversation with their partner, what has that looked like in your life, right? Because it can be a really like ego hitting subject. And I think for that reason, people don't know how to broach it. And I'm smiling really big thinking about this because I have had this conversation with my girlfriends in particular, like recently, just about how people have such varying degrees of how open and willing they are to talk about sex in general. Like not even with their partner, but with their friends. Like I've had friends ask me like, oh, do you talk to your girlfriends about sex? I'm like, yeah, why not? But there's definitely a version of myself that a few years ago would be like, I don't want to have this conversation. And now I'm like way more open to it. I've had, I always think to her as the example, like my own nutrition coach is very open about it. And having her in my life in the role that she's been in from a nutrition and wellness perspective, she has just completely changed my worldview on how to think about it from a measure of being well. Like thinking about like how much does your sex drive? Like she literally puts that in when I do a client check-in with her on a regular basis. It's like, how is your libido? And that is a marker of our success in our process that has nothing to do with my weight, what I look like from my body fat percentage, what I'm pushing in the gym, whatever it is. So I still have that to say to go back to my original question for you is like, how can we talk about the communication piece? What did that look like in you and your husband's relationship? How is it something that you continue to work on? Because again, like we're talking all about wellness, we have to talk about the holistic piece, and like the communication component is everything.
It is. And also great point that sex isn't just about, a connection with your partner, which is super important, but it is your own body, how you're feeling and how vital you are. And yeah, if you lose that, it does absolutely mean something's wrong. So that's a really good point that I don't know if a lot of people know that, but God, communication about it is so tough. And we are not a good example because we went to the brink of divorce with it. But now that we've learned that there's, it's not a reflection of maybe like how I think he views me, appearance wise, it's much easier to talk about and it's much easier to get on the same page. And, it's kind of silly because we still have some women that'll sign up their guys online on the guy's site, and then we'll call them to set up their appointment and they'll be like, I didn't sign myself up.
Oh, this is
so there's some sneaky women out there. Okay. I know.
But hey, like this could be, you know what? I'll give the analogy to a podcast, because there are a lot of great podcasters out there who talk about sex, relationships, fill in the blank in the communication world of partnerships. And a lot of them will say, if you're listening to this right now and you don't know how to open up the door to this conversation with your partner, send them this episode. So Blokes is playing that role, right? Like to be able, shout out to those women, because that's like ballsy. They're just going for it. They're like, you need this help and I'm going to make you get it. Great. Like whatever works for you. But, I think that's really what it comes down to. And like, it's an amazing win that we have these resources that we're willing to sit here and thank you for you being open about having this conversation too. Because I think again, in the same way we were talking about how so much of this goes back to somebody going through perimenopause, menopause, the life changes. I put that in quotes because I had a client who has told me if she has one more doctor say that comment to her, she's going to punch the next one. And I don't blame her. She's like, I'm in my 40s. I'm not ancient. I don't want to be made to feel this way. It's really degrading, honestly. And I think there's a delicate balance to that. But to go, bring this full circle, like I was saying, all this comes down to understanding what's actually going on inside of your body, right? I didn't even realize I made the point until you brought it back out, Katy, to say that knowing that your libido is a marker of your own health is so huge. And I think that people, as you said, and that's what made me think twice about it, we only think about it in the context of other people, right? It probably only, and I feel like I could say this because I could say this in my own personal life, you only identify it as a problem when there's someone else bringing it to you, right? Like when do we self-reflect on that? Like when do we sit and ask ourselves, like, what is my sex drive like?
That's such a good point.
I don't think too many people do that. I didn't do that until I started working with my friends. Shout out to Sonia for making this all possible for me, because it's just really then has changed like relationally what I look for, like how I want to operate in a future relationship. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and that partner probably does need a nudge, because if they have the low libido, it's not affecting them really. Cause they're like, I'm fine. I don't know that I'm missing anything. I don't have that desire. It's the partner that has the normal, healthy desire that's like, hello, knock, knock, knock.
Sure. Exactly.
So nudging your partner is a good thing in my mind.
I agree. I totally agree. And, we'll underscore it by just saying like, we want people to feel like they have the information to be empowered to start the conversation, right? And not feel like it's coming from a place of like, well, you're not satisfying me and making it about you. Right. I think that's the toughest part about it.
Yeah, again, really good point there. That's true. Make it more about their own health. That can be a good excuse.
Yes. Yes, exactly. There you go. So if anybody needs a way to couch this, we gave it to you. Well, before we wrap everything up, and I want to be sensitive to your time, the other big question here is just going back to some of the benefits you've seen in your own life. You did touch on how you feel in the gym and like having more of that muscle tone. But one of the big questions that I got from a few clients and some of my followers on Instagram is, and this is a big question, so you can take this in whatever direction you want. How can we use these tools to better understand their support in weight loss? And I think this is an important question for us to land on, because as you and I talked about, we have things like semaglutide that is being manipulated a little bit, right, in the media. Yeah. Let's say that. And how can we understand, like, to look at this as a positive, as a beneficial source for weight loss, like a tool, like going back to that word, as a tool, not a quick fix, not a, be all end all. We got to look at all the other stuff too.
Yeah. Oh my God. I think semaglutide and the new one is tirzepatide are absolute game changers in a positive way. And there are definitely some, bad media spins right now. I think that's going to go away. I think it's fluff. I mean, they're kind of saying, people are trying to be heroin chic, skinny, and all that kind of stuff. Like the Kardashians are taking away diabetes drugs from diabetes patients. The thing is, obesity and being overweight causes a lot of issues in our health. Tons of issues with our hormones, with our, just basically, it can cause cancer and cause all kinds of other diseases. So, and as we age, when our hormones fluctuate, if our gut health is bad, then we also have other things like, insulin resistance. So when your estrogen gets low, right away, that's when women will go, oh, I'm gaining weight, because they're becoming more insulin resistant. Estrogen is really a good stress hormone. So when that goes away, your body relies more on cortisol. And like you were saying before, the cortisol leads to that. So you're not processing your food into energy like you should be. So, no real fault of your own. Right. You're working against biological factors. So what this peptide does is really work with your metabolic health, and it helps with insulin sensitivity. And it also changes your thought process with food. It helps with like hunger cravings, so a lot of people go into this like circle of eating something bad and then feeling guilty for it. And then like just going back and forth of this shame. And it's a really horrible cycle. So this actually helps you not want to reach for something naturally. And I've done it, I'm on it. And let me tell you, it's so freaking freeing to not care so much. Like if I want ice cream or French fries, I will eat them, but I don't feel bad about it because I don't want them that often, actually. It's really nice. So I just feel like you have more freedom and a better relationship with food. And then again, that snowball effects to help everything make those positive changes. Totally. And then it keeps going.
And I love that you landed on the example of the thought process and the relationship, because frankly, Katy, if I could summarize my coaching, it's never about, yes, I use macronutrients as a tool for my clients, but it's kind of like a vehicle, because if we want to get through to the root cause of what's going on, it's usually dealing with what you just described. And macros are not the solution to that. It's a route that we can take, right? Like it gives us something to put this all in a nice little box and make it structured and give you a way to understand that these foods can still fit into your life. But the women I work with who are the most successful, and I define most successful meaning that this is the be all end all sustainable lifestyle that everyone's marketing and everyone wants. They're the ones who are willing to open up to me and be like, Krysta, I have a very shitty relationship with food. Like it's stress related. I'm thinking about this all the time. And don't get me wrong, that's not everyone's story, but it is for a lot of people. Yeah. And I'm sure I also attract that type of client because that's me. And I've definitely been that person. And as you're describing this, I'm sitting here thinking like, this is something I want to explore for myself. And it's not to say that there's something wrong. Like I've had a lot of great positive benefit of what I've done from a standpoint of finding the structure, following the structure, creating the routine in my life. But like you said, like what's wrong with looking at alternative ways to get additional help? Why are you going to work against your body? The absorption comment around food is huge. And so many people only think about that in the context of extremes. Like they only think about that in the context of like, oh, well, I don't really have a problem with ice cream because I'm not a binge eater. Or, oh, I don't really have an issue with food absorption because I don't have a gut health problem. Maybe you have this in-between kind of situation where like, just because you're good doesn't mean you could be better.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we've all seen like women that work so hard. I remember growing up and it's like, you know, you can work so hard and do all the right things and never eat a carb in your day.
And who wants to live like that? Not me.
Yeah. But like still they're not budging. There's something else going on. And so like getting the help is not it's not bad. It helps like fix your body and it helps like get it working how it's supposed to. So you can actually use the food that you do put into your body as energy instead of storing it.
Yeah. Well, we're all for that. And I'm very excited by all of this, just both like professionally and personally too. So this is not going to be the first we're going to hear all about Joi and about Blokes as well. So again, want to be respectful of your time. And I know that we could go on and on about so many different topics, but I appreciate that. I feel like we covered, you know, a lot of the different pillars of all of this and went in a few different directions. So thank you for being so thorough. And I also want to acknowledge you because I know you told me initially you weren't really the podcast girl of the group, but you have been amazing to chat with. And there's so much more we could discuss, but I do want to move into our lightning round. And as I told you, it's just meant to be pure fun. So no heads up on what these questions are, but I think I kind of have a theme for this. We didn't get a chance to really talk about like Katy before babies, Katy before Joi. And I mentioned to you when I was stalking you on Instagram, I saw some fun things in your Instagram bio about some other roles you have in your life. So I need to know the answers to those questions because I want to know more about you. So that's going to be the focus of our lightning round. Cool?
Yeah.
Okay. This might not be a short answer. That's fine. You have in your bio that you're a swing trader. What does that mean? Tell me more.
Oh God. Well, so before I met my husband, I was selling institutional fixed income. So I had a little stint on Wall Street selling bonds. And when I met him, I quit my corporate career and, you know, he had some success in his life. So had some money stocked away. And I met with his financial advisor while we were engaged. And I remember them telling me, you know, it's not a good year for stocks. You'll probably be about flat, you know, you probably won't gain anything. And afterwards I looked at him and I said, so you're paying them how much a month to manage this and not make you any money, but they're going to make money. I said, I think I can do better than zero. So I, you know, because I had a little bit of trading and finance, not a ton, I took over the trading and the account and I just swing trade stocks and I did really well until, recently.
Hey, I mean, I don't know how much was pause. And in fairness to you, don't like, you know, you better give yourself some credit because until recently, if you mean like the last several weeks, I think there's a few things that are beyond your control.
Yeah, right? I'm sitting out for a little while.
That's okay. I think a lot of people, if they like, you know, are well versed in this, could agree. I fully agree with you that that's beyond your control. That's really cool. I love that. And you know, like I also love that because I love that as a representation of a female using her voice and being like, listen, I can do this a little better. Let me show you how. So that's awesome. That makes me so happy. I love that. Cool.
You.
Now tell me about your experience as a real estate investor.
Oh my God. You know what? My absolute passion is designing and building homes.
Cool.
And so we did our first one kind of on a whim, and, you know, a lot of people say they hate it and they're, you know, it could cause divorce and it's stressful, but like my husband and I have the bug. So we've done several, we've got maybe 5 or 6 projects that we've done or are doing now. And I just love everything about it.
All around Nashville or other cities?
Nope. We do Denver. We've done Aspen. Cool. Now we're doing some Nashville. So yeah, that's my passion. And that's what nice. Will do full time someday.
Okay. Very cool. Put it out into the universe. Come on. I love that. That's great. That's so fun. How did you land on some of those other cities for those projects?
Well, we were in Denver. We just moved to Nashville a month ago.
Oh, very recent. Welcome to Nashville. Well, not that I live there, but you're new. Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking cool so far. I love it.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been there twice. It's a really fun city.
Yeah. Love it.
What prompted you guys to move there? This can be another lightning round question.
Oh God. COVID. I mean, didn't everyone move somewhere?
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. We were just ready for change.
Nice. That's awesome. Tell me more about your kids.
I've got a almost 5-year-old daughter named Lennon. And it's like looking in a mirror. It's, she's frustrating and, I'm worried because I don't know how to parent myself. And that's who she is. She's a little mini me. And then I've got a little, almost 2-year-old that we named Rowdy, and he is just like my husband and he's super cute. Yeah. So
what's the backstory behind their names? Hopefully something good. There's gotta be something there.
We just thought they were cool. We just wanted something different.
Nice.
And we knew, when we were picking Rowdy's name, we heard of one guy in Telluride that was named Rowdy, and we heard that he would ride to the bars on his horses. And I just thought, that's fucking cool.
That is really cool. I love that. That's an awesome story. Very cool. Nice. So we talked a little bit about fitness too. And you mentioned like you're getting to that point where you're like, hell yeah, feeling strong. So tell me what your preferred workout is. What are you doing when you're going into the gym?
Yeah. I mean, I wish I had more time to go to the gym. I feel like I've got a Peloton subscription.
Okay.
And I think that at my at-home workouts, I do 20 or 30 minutes of the weights. They have great weight classes. So I feel like there's always enough time to do like one of those classes.
Can you say that a little louder for us, please? Like there's always enough time. In the same breath that Katy said, there's always enough time. She also mentioned that she doesn't have enough time, but she still gets it done. Love it. So good.
You have to.
Yes. Love it. And I think I tell people all the time when people ask me about my take on Peloton, first and foremost, I love that you mentioned that you do strength training. I'm obviously a little biased to that, but what I really love about it that I think is such a positive for a lot of the women I work with and how we think about incorporating it into their routine is what you said about the 20 to 30 minutes. I think that is something that has been so powerful to get women to see that shit doesn't have to be perfect. And if you have 20 minutes, I have a client that I just love. She told me this story not even 2 weeks ago. She was in her pajamas. And she was like, you know what? She was doing laundry. She was walking past she was right by her laundry room where she had the Peloton set up. Her son, 3 years old, says to her, Mom, let's work out. We can't go to the gym today. He loves the gym. Like the gym where I work, we have like a little kids center. So he loves it. He's a great influence in getting her to go. They knew they couldn't go that day. He knew they weren't going for whatever reason. And he said to her, like, let's do a workout. Was not dressed. She found no excuse. They have like kids versions, I think, on there now too, like for certain things.
Fun.
There's something that they have that's like kids focused, popped it on, got it done. Like that to me is so, so cool. And I don't think had it not been for companies like that this would be a conversation we'd be having, but it's really important.
Yeah.
So
I mean, even
awesome.
if you just like do a squat for 2 minutes and do a plank for a couple minutes, like I mean, that's what actually I did yesterday. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get a workout in, but I like for 5 minutes, just, did some squats and it feels good.
Yeah. It feels good to just move your body. I love that. Awesome. Tell me what's one food you absolutely cannot live without.
I like a good burger.
Me too. My kind of girl. Yeah. I wish if I had a burger rec for you in Nashville, I would give it to you. I'm going to find one for you though, because I have friends that live there. So I will find out like the best burger in Nashville.
Yes,
I'll let
please.
you know. That's my homework. I'll go find that out for you for sure. Now, last but not least, very important question. If somebody just had one piece of information, one learning lesson, one takeaway from this entire episode, what do you hope that is?
Just own your own health journey. Don't let it go. Health is number one. Self-care. You know who you are and what you need to do to, live your best life.
Love it. Amazing. Couldn't agree more. So very importantly, please tell us, how can we connect with Joi? Where can FYX listeners learn more about it? If we got guys out there, where can they learn about Blokes? Where can they connect with you? Give us everything. And we'll link it down in the show notes.
I would love for you guys to connect with us on IG. That's where we do most of our stuff.
Cool.
Joi is spelled Joi, and it's Joi Women's Wellness. And our website is choosejoi.co. And then Blokes is at Get Blokes on Instagram. So yeah, follow us either place, send us some DMs, and yeah, let us know that you heard us on the FYX.
Thank you so much, Katy. I really appreciate it. As always, been another incredible podcast conversation. I feel so lucky for the opportunity to get to do this every single week, get to connect with such amazing people. I said this to you when we first spoke over the phone, one of the coolest parts about podcasting, and it's just an opportunity to learn. And I got so much out of this. I have more follow-up questions for you for sure, even about my own personal journey. So I'm excited because this is just the start of a new friendship and a really cool new relationship. And I'm just excited to see the way that companies like Joi and Blokes are really changing the game for health and for wellness, and to be able to facilitate that type of conversation and bring more awareness to it is just an honor and a real pleasure. So thank you again for your time, and thank you for sharing your story and your husband's story and the story of your family. It's really cool to see all of that come together. And for anybody listening out there, like Katy said, take ownership of your health journey. The best way that you can do that is, if you listen to this podcast, take action off of it. If there's something from this message that resonated with you, and maybe it's not even you personally, maybe like we were joking about, maybe it's someone else in your life, send this over to them. Be like a little hint, hint, nudge, nudge, send them a text, whatever you have to do. But the worst thing you can do with this information is take it for yourself and then do nothing with it. So please don't make that decision. Spread the message. We always appreciate a rating, a review, all that good stuff for the show. It helps more people get acquainted with it, and just, again, contributing to spreading the word on all of the things we talk about here every other week. And with that, from wherever you're listening from, we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.